straighten me out. She said, just by continuing, it's better than canceling it.
Right, exactly.
And if we have to continue it again.
So we'll continue to the
How are you? August meeting, sir.
first.
Is that okay?
August Call the regular meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, July 21st to order. I ask you please stand and join in salute our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So I just ask that for those in attendance as well as my colleagues, if you would kindly turn off your electronic devices. I'm struggling to do at the moment here myself. The reason I have you those turned off is it does interfere with our presentation to other parts of the city of the cable network. I trust all my colleagues have had a enjoyable break for being here on Tuesday nights and ready to go. For those in attendance and those watching at home, just wanted to make mention that our summer schedule is a little bit different than the regular schedule during the year, in which we will be having meetings instead of every Tuesday night. We only meet on the third week of July and the third week in August, and we'll be meeting tonight, then again on Thursday night. And then after this, our next round of meetings will be the 18th and 20th of August. This evening we have 7 public hearings that are scheduled, and I'll be giving some details on those and how we'll be handling those momentarily. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of June 14, 2011.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Any comments or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 23rd, 2015.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Any concerns or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll be moving on into the public hearings. On the public hearings, I will first, after the reading of the various notices provided by the city clerk, I will first ask those who are in favor to come up and speak, then those who are in opposition, and then those who are neither for nor against, but have information that that you believe would be helpful to the council in rendering a decision. I would ask that you come to the podium, and for the record, you give us your name and address, so that we have a record of who has spoken here. So at this time, I would ask Ms. Sharko to read the notice for the first public hearing we'll be holding this evening.
Public hearing to amend Section 10-4.11, isolated stop signs, by inserting accepted or unaccepted before the word streets in the first sentence.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor or to amending this part of our city ordinances? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition relative to isolated stop signs? Is there anyone here to speak anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Hearing none, Mr. Thibodeau, I believe this is in your committee. Do you see any need to continue the public hearing?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. So based on the recommendation of Mr. Thibodeau, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed. We'll go into a reading of the next item, please.
Public hearing relative to the installation of no parking signs on the east side of Berwick Road from pole 7261 to pole 7268.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor relative to installation of a no parking sign on Berwick Road? Anyone here to speak in favor? Ms. Connie, I know this, you're familiar with this area. Is there anyone here that you know of that was planning to come and speak?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone's just so thrilled, they figured they didn't have to come here.
Good to know. All right, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone neither for nor against? Hearing none, Mr. Thibodeau, do you see any need to continue this public hearing?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. So based on the recommendation of Mr. Thibodeau, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed. We'll go into a reading of the next item.
Public hearing relative to the application for liquid environmental solutions for a new above-ground storage license for 2 above-ground 10,000-gallon methanol tanks and 1 above-ground 5,000-gallon windshield wipe fluid tank at 527 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Good evening. If you could come to the podium, please, and give us your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Bob Coluccio. I'm with Webb Engineering Associates of 104 Longwater Drive in Norwell, Massachusetts. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Liquid Environmental Solutions for the petition to get a license to store methanol as shown on our application.
Okay. Can you give us some details about what you will be doing?
Yeah, well, they have been making windshield wiper fluid at the facility for the past 5 years. And in January, February, we came before the Zoning Board and Conservation Commission to get the permitting to do the project, which it was granted favorably. And when we went to upgrade our permit from the fire department, the fire department noticed that, the fire chief noticed that we had never come before a license for the upgrade. So here we are, we're facility's built, but there's no methanol in the facility. So we're hoping that we can start making windshield wiper fluid.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Conti and then Councilor Churchill. Councilor Conti?
So the methanol is for the production of windshield washer fluid only?
Yes.
And how is all of the methanol that's going to be stored in those tanks going to be combined and used on that site?
Well, what they do is it's combined with water and dye, and then it's taken off site and sold as windshield wiper fluid.
So this is a Cumberland Farm facility, so it's natural.
No, Liquid Environmental Solutions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking two things at the same time. But
The project came about because they were making the methanol indoors, and the fire department went through and asked that they do some upgrades. And so basically as we were the engineer they hired, and we recommended they take it outdoors so that it could be, build a containment dike for it and have everything environmentally sound. And instead of plastic tanks, use steel tanks.
So the tank's double-walled?
The tanks are inside, not double-walled, but they're in a containment dike. That's sized to contain the largest tank plus freeboard.
And the tanks are filled by tanker trucks coming to the
Yes,
site?
and those tanker trucks park in a containment area so that if they had a spill, it would contain about 1,000 gallons.
And I'm sure there's state regulations on the construction of the dikes and the tanks and the storage and the
Yeah.
operation.
Yes, it was built in accordance with NFPA 30.
Yeah. And will the tanks be routinely, how often will the tanks be filled by a truck is the question?
Well, I think we're talking maybe once or twice a week is probably a good number. That may sound like a lot,
That's a
but
lot of windshield wiper.
it's not a lot, yeah.
That's a lot of windshield wiper.
It depends, it's seasonal, because in the wintertime when they're selling a lot more windshield wiper fluid, then it would be a couple times a week. In the summertime, I think it trickles down. It's an industrial complex, so there's no real impact. This is what they did by upgrading the facility did not result in an increase in that truck traffic, because they're still going to sell the same amount of windshield wiper fluid. It's just that now with larger tanks, they can better schedule the deliveries, because now instead of taking small quantities, they can have it all come in one quantity. It's also economic that they can buy it when it's cheap.
Thank you for making that clear, and I appreciate your answers to my questions. And Mr. President, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Churchill and then Councilor Parika. Councilor
Thank you, Mr.
Churchill.
President.
You're welcome.
Sir, what was the size of the tank that you previously used?
2 5,500-gallon tanks.
All right. Can you name another community that does this process?
Excuse me?
Another community that has these tanks in Massachusetts?
That you caught me off guard there. That stores methanol.
Well, a 10,000-gallon tank has to be state regulated as well as the fire department. I was curious what other communities you've done that with.
I've done various sizes. We did a facility for.
Is this the biggest one in Massachusetts?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Other cities in town?
No, but I'm just not aware that that it's the biggest facility in Massachusetts.
Okay. Have you submitted your plans to the state already?
Well, we submitted them to the fire department. There was no requirement to submit them to the state.
For 10,000 gallons, there was no requirement?
Right, because the state fire marshal's review starts over 10,000 gallons.
10,000 or over?
No, over 10,000.
Okay. And the one before that was like 55 gallon?
5,500.
And you can't think of any other community that's had that?
Not off the top of my head. I can get back to you
No,
on
that's
that.
okay. I was curious if there's been any situations where the methanol, when you take it off the tank, or it goes into the tank, then it goes from the tank to the processor. How does it get off that tank?
Well, it's pumped from the supply tanks, which is where
Right.
the methanol is stored. It's pumped into a mixed tank.
What size is that tank?
That's 5,000 gallons.
Okay, so half size.
Yeah,
Goes from 10,000 to 5,000.
right. That's
Is
not,
that in-house or is that diked also?
that's in the dike as well.
Okay.
It's not at that point, once it's windshield wiper fluid, it's not considered hazardous.
It's diluted.
Right, it's 50%
It has
water.
no flashpoint anymore.
That's correct. We treated it as though it was, though.
Flashpoint's pretty extensive. It's 3 times the flashpoint of gasoline.
The flashpoint?
It's 6 to 36%. Gasoline's only like 10%.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah, as far as
right.
flashpoint is.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Parika.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, I appreciate the information that my fellow counselors have been getting out of you. So this company, which is right around Liquid Environmental Solutions on Pleasant Street, it's already been manufacturing windshield wiper fluid for how long?
5 years?
5 years, at half the capacity.
Not have the, well, if you consider the volume of the tanks,
The
yes,
tanks.
but not in capacity if you consider it in production.
Right, but now you're at the recommendation or insistence of our fire chief, the operations were moved from indoors, or the methanol containment has been moved from indoors to outdoors.
Correct.
Correct. And you've installed a larger tank so that deliveries can be made on a shorter amount of time.
Right, and yes, instead of having
an extended
5,000, you can
period.
bring
Yeah.
in 10,000 at one time and fill a tank.
Right, and so it's pretty much business as usual. That's already been something we've already been doing here in our just the gallon tank.
Yes, with the added benefit that the environmental and the fire safety is tremendously better.
And our fire chief was, the inspections have taken place and.
The fire chief has been a part of this from the very beginning.
Excellent.
So we've given him everything he's asked for,
Excellent.
fire suppression, and he's reviewed the plans thoroughly.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Councilor Thibodeau.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Sir, so is it one 10,000-gallon tank or two 10,000 gallon?
Two 10,000-gallon tanks.
So why didn't you ask for a permit for one 20,000-gallon tank? Because then it would be inspected and it would come under the state.
I'm sorry,
review.
I'm sorry, say that again? Could you
I
repeat
said,
that?
why didn't you ask for one 20,000-gallon tank? Is that because if it goes over the 10,000 gallons, it has to be inspected by the state, and you have to get a permit from the state? Is that why you're asking?
No,
for
because
10,000?
two 10,000-gallon tanks it's more effective to operate, because they can bring in a truckload of methanol. If they bring in a bad batch, well, then they could still have the other tank to make methanol out of, and they can manage the methanol better if it's in two separate tanks.
How can you have a bad batch, sir?
Of methanol?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, water, it could come with water already
But
in it.
mix it with water anyway, right?
Yes, but they want to control the concentration.
All right, let me ask you another question, sir. What kind of a suppression system are you going to have before the methanol is mixed with water?
It's a foam system that was approved by the fire department, actually required, and the specification of that system was by the fire department in conjunction with a fire suppression engineer.
Thank you. Mr. President, if I could, I would like to see that this, unless someone else here has something else to say, I would like to see this continued until the fire chief comes in and talks to us about the specifics of the safety of this particular kind of storage and production, whether it's indoor, outdoor. Obviously, they've been doing it without any kind of oversight for a long period of time. I'd like to see our own people come in and explain it to us, because some of the explanations I just heard, I'm just not satisfied with.
I'll take that under advisement. Are there any other concerns? Council Conti?
Yes, I'd like to take advantage while the engineer is standing here to ask an engineering question. And I'm going back to the double wall issue. That double wall tanks are very, very common, and I know they're a little more expensive than other tanks, but I'd like to know, from your understanding of whether it's ANSI standards or whatever it is, the guidelines of why these tanks are not mandated to be double wall tanks.
The tanks are on UL 142. That's made it to a standard Underwriters Laboratory, and the facility is constructed in accordance with NFPA 30 and the 527 CMR1, which is the new safety code, new fire code that Massachusetts has adopted, and double wall tanks don't offer the same advantage as, say, a dike, a containment dike does. Both of them are, compliant by code, but with a double wall tank, the leaks don't normally occur from the tanks themselves. They occur from the piping, if there's going to be any leaks. And so the system that's out there, that's being proposed, all of the piping is inside containment areas. This is an improvement over what they've had for the past 5 years, which the fire department has been a part of the past 5 years. He's done multiple inspections of the facility over the past 5 years. It wasn't until we upgraded that he asked us to, or pointed out to us that we should have a license.
So help me with my concern. My concern is that, first of all, congratulations for doing this business in Attleboro without an incident for as long as you've been here doing it. No one even knew that you were here. Thank you for that, because now you're moving those two 10,000 tanks outdoors. They're going to be visible and a little bit more obvious and a little bit more prominent, because when they're in a building, no one knew it was there. The code allows a double wall tank. It doesn't prevent a double wall tank. So the code allows either a single wall or a double wall tank. So my question is, here we are moving tanks from indoor building outside. We're storing two tanks, 10,000 gallons, with a material that is 6 times more flammable than gasoline. And did I get that wrong?
That's not correct,
got it wrong.
actually.
I got that wrong.
Yeah.
I got that wrong.
Flammable has to do with flashpoint.
They're not, the flash point is actually, might be equal to or higher than gasoline, actually, but
So in gasoline, we have a state requirement that all the tanks are down in the ground. And in your case, you're going to be storing the tanks above ground. So I'm wondering, why doesn't it make sense to use a double wall tank?
it doesn't make sense because the code requires us to provide I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm saying that the code requires you to have containment, and it gives you the option of a containment dike. And so we chose that option because we knew that it provided better protection. As I said, double steel tanks don't typically corrode. I've been inside of a lot of tanks. I've been inspecting tanks for 25 years, and they don't just leak. They're they're welded construction. It just doesn't happen. So that there are not many incidences where a double wall tank, the interior tank has leaked, and that it's been detected in the wall. But there's been enough incidences of piping leaks where the containment of the dike is a better use of your resources.
So it would be incorrect for me to draw an analogy between your 10,000-gallon tanks and my propane tank that only lasts 12 years, both made out of steel. Your tanks are going to be regularly inspected by code or by law, and they're going to be...
The fire department is due to inspect these
They're going
tanks.
to be X-rayed for integrity.
Yes.
And so there's a ongoing maintenance program that's monitored by the Attleboro Fire Department?
Yes.
Okay, good. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. Council Blair?
If I may, fellow Councilman Churchill, when they do that inspection on those tanks, they don't x-ray the tanks, they do a visual inspection, like
Tanks
that.
approved. Most of the tests are on the piping itself. It's put under pressure.
When their tanks were manufactured, they were x-rayed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And when they attach everything, they pressurize unless things have changed inside.
Pressurized, like we did the ones 20 years ago.
If I may
at my
follow
place.
with Council, would you explain to this honorable body that your engineers also are aware of the type of tank they use when they design the protection system, which is basically the same for either tank? Am I right?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I said, would you explain to this honorable body that when your engineers designed the protection system that was approved by the fire department, that protection system is the same as it would be if it was a double wall tank?
Correct.
So
Yes.
the protection is not changed because of the tank?
Correct. The protection is basically to address fugitive liquids. In addition, one of the things I should have made reference was that we have a nitrogen blanketing system in this so that while they're drawing liquid out, it's not replaced with air, so that the atmosphere inside the tanks is now inerted by nitrogen rather than oxygen, which is a large improvement over what they're doing now.
Well, nitrogen is common. Texas Instrument used to use nitrogen in their ovens to keep the balance of the oxygen, because nothing's going to burn without oxygen. When nitrogen's in, there's no oxygen,
Yes, that's the intention.
eliminating the possibility of ignition.
Correct.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Anything else to add, sir?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Come to the podium, please, and again, give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Rando, and I'm with the 555 Office Condo Trust on 555 Pleasant Street in Attleboro. And I'm here because, and I might be convinced to not be in opposition, but when I type in the address into Google, it shows up as this location being right at the Sensata sign, right across from our office, right across Haggerty Lane. And I'm curious, how far is this? We work there every day. We're there, weekdays, weekends. People have been killed in Daytona, Florida. There was an explosion back in 2006, and 2 people were killed and 1 critically injured with a methanol tank. And I'm just wondering if there's, if I can get some information about, where this thing physically is going to be, and if we're really comfortable that everybody's going to be safe. So I don't know. I haven't seen a map. We got some stuff in the mail about the hearing going on, but I really don't know where this is. So I don't know if there's a way to get an answer to that question before we go any further.
Councilor Churchill, this
Yes.
is...
I am retired, Mr. President. Go ahead, sir.
Just out of curiosity, do you happen to have the application, or have seen the drawing, or have you seen the location? And could you address the point?
His biggest concern should be loading and unloading. And I think Betty has the application.
I
She must have
have-
stole it out of my box.
I do come prepared. I do have the location.
Could you pass that along up the line
As long
here?
as I get it back, because it's the only one I have.
Right. I do want that back, but if you could just take a look, perhaps.
I'm a neighbor too. I will consider a neighbor too.
Oh, great.
It's, I
I
was
walk
gonna
through the industrial
suggest-
park every day.
Can I ask a gentleman from the, who was just speaking, or from your company, could you come up just to clarify this?
You want me to say my name?
Could I have your name and address for the record, please?
Josh Hanlon. I represent Liquid Environmental Solutions, the regional director.
Josh Hanlon? Okay, thank you. Did you get that?
So
Yes.
this is, if Pleasant Street was out here, this is the very back.
Josh.
Wait, could we hold that up in some way?
So we can also.
I can,
Perhaps-
if you have the same copy,
Yeah, I think it's the same.
I'll put it over here.
Okay. So if we're looking at that drawing there, that is showing Building 11 on the Attleboro corporate campus.
Could somebody point to where Building 11 is?
Bob, you want to show
Perhaps
them?
the other gentleman? Thank you.
So Pleasant Street would be on the left-hand side, all the way out at the very front of the campus. Building 11 is at the very back of the Attleboro
All right,
corporate
and where's
campus.
Pleasant Street on that drawing?
Pleasant Street would be up, probably somewhere
Yeah.
up here, like maybe
Right.
half a mile, or is it a quarter of a mile?
At least a quarter of a mile.
I walk
Okay.
You walk it, okay.
from
Okay,
Pleasant Street
all right.
This is the railroad here.
So Building 11,
These are
if
wetlands, which is why we came to the Conservation Commission.
right. So Building 11, if you've ever walked the campus, if you're familiar with the big yellow tanks at the very back of the campus, that's Building 11.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of the buildings furthest removed from Pleasant
Is it
Street.
close to the train tracks?
It's close to the train.
About 100 feet from the train.
Okay.
Yep, yep. way
Well,
in the middle.
that's pretty far away, so I withdraw my opposition, so,
Okay,
thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay. Mr. Blair, you had I guess we'll say we can bring that back. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your help.
I was
Council
going
Blair?
to suggest if this gentleman wasn't satisfied or didn't want to withdraw, that I would suggest, along with Walter, the fire chief comes in for a little better
Thank you, ma'am.
explanation and a little assurance for the rest of us. You know,
Yeah.
we're really only hearing.
Does it make a difference? The fire chief signed the application that for the facility. So
I
he-
haven't heard from him, sir.
Okay.
Can I interject something? If the fire chief hasn't signed off, it doesn't even come before the council.
Okay. Thank you.
That's
You're
correct.
welcome.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition in this matter? Again, if we can have your name and address for the record?
Charlie Adler, 24th Street. If I understand correctly, that this manufacturing process has been going on without a proper permit for a storage tank, if I understand that correctly, then that gives me pause as far as my confidence in the operation of this facility, this particular manufacturing process.
Just a second. Let him finish and then
I'm sorry.
I'll recognize you.
Also, I understood that this plant basically processes liquid waste of one sort or another. So I'd like to understand whether, is this liquid feedstock or whatever coming into the plant, or is it leaving the plant, or both? And if it's coming in, is it clean or pure, or is it contaminated? My understanding was that anything coming in is contaminated and then has to be separated or processed or purified or whatever before it goes out. So I'd like to understand a little more about what this particular product is that's being manufactured and what waste products it's being manufactured from. So I would hope that you would extend the hearing so that we could hear more from other voices.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Churchill?
I'm just to reassure this gentleman that even in my career, we were regularly inspect the building, and he is regulated, has been regulated since he's been in operation because of the material that he carries. Even though the tank question has changed, the process has been the same, and the material has been regulated by the fire department since you've been operating.
Yeah, there's been no hiding what we're doing from them. It's just
Yeah.
that the idea of whether a license.
It's a regulated.
Could you
it's-
come up to the podium, please, so we can, when speaking, please? Yeah.
Josh, he probably has more experience with the 5 years before he hired us to do
I can
that.
speak a little more to the history
Okay.
than the engineer. The process has been inspected yearly or by the fire department, and it's as a matter of course of a recommendation. The tanks had been permitted, there was a license missing. It was in due diligence of reevaluating everything that we found out that we needed a license for this. So the tanks have been permitted for years, the process has been known for years, and we are just making it safer. And in that process, we found out we need a license, and that's why we're here.
Yes,
Can I
okay,
follow
thank you.
up?
Councilor Churchill.
I don't know if you're the gentleman I talked to years ago. The yellow tanks are still unoccupied?
The yellow tanks are
The big
part
yellow
of
tanks
the-
near your facility?
So that addresses the second part of the question. The process that we're talking about tonight is methanol storage and making windshield washer fluid.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with the wastewater treatment plant that's
Right.
regulated under the
Right.
CWT regulations by the EPA. That is two separate entities.
But if
So
I'm
the
correct, sir, your
material-
company does that too?
Yes.
Yes. And I believe I was over there and inspected you when you were involved with that. You were talking about this process now. But to make him feel more comfortable, I know the fire department regularly, I think quarterly, inspects your facility.
We have a very good working relationship with the fire department, yes. And so to answer the question, it's virgin methanol that's being brought in. It goes into its own dedicated tank. It's mixed with water and dye to make windshield washer fluid, and that goes out of the process. So it's an independent process of the wastewater treatment facility that's on that location as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Carney.
So, Josh, what happens when you get a bad batch of
Of methanol?
methanol, sorry?
Well, the benefit of going to the two 10,000-gallon tanks is you fill in one load at one time. So if you make a bad, and it's only happened once where there's an impurity in the methanol that comes in from the manufacturer, and we do a test with the windshield washer fluid. If it streaks the material, that's where you know it's the generation of bad material. The manufacturer would be responsible for coming in, taking the contents of that tank back to their facility.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions regarding this? Mr. Adler, does that address your concern? If you could come up, I know you mentioned some things about the wastewater, but again, that's separate from what purpose of the public hearing, but does that help you
Well,
clarify?
I didn't know that the plant included, separate manufacturing processes.
Okay.
In general, I feel that whole site is, although it's an industrial site, it has been moving away from heavy industry. And, that we have the Bristol Community College on the campus. So I am just a little leery about anything that involves expansion of manufacturing that involves hazardous materials on the site. Whether this constitutes an expansion, I'm not sure at this point, but I am
Okay.
certainly watchful of what's going on the site and hope you give it, full consideration before making any decision.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Kirby?
A question, I appreciate it, Mr. Adler, but I had a question
Okay.
regarding from something that Mr. Adler had said, though. Is anything in your process regarding the windshield washer fluid a hazardous byproduct that doesn't go into the windshield washer fluid? Is there
No.
any? There's
All
no
materials-
hazardous materials that are generated that have to be disposed of?
That's correct.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other concerns among my colleagues? Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone else to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Churchill, what are your thoughts on this? There is some feeling among council members to continue this and get more
I
information.
think we need to address Mr. Thibodeau's concern.
Okay.
The clerk is correct, though. Nothing comes before this council that has to do with fire permits unless the chief signed it.
Okay,
But he was addressed that he needed a license to change his license, so I would leave it up to Councilor Thibodeau.
I would say, if I may, Mr. President, in light of the further information that I've heard since I requested that, I think that I have been satisfied by the chief has already signed off, and that satisfies my concerns.
okay. And Mr. Blair?
Yes, certainly does.
So, Councilor Churchill, based on their comments, Do you feel comfortable with closing the public hearing?
Yes,
Then
sir, I
go
do.
listen committee? Okay. All right, so based on the testimony received and the testimony provided, I'm going to close that public hearing. Thank you. I'm going to a reading of the next public hearing notice, please.
Public hearing relative to the application for 2015 new Class II auto license for Best Buy Automotive and Tires, Inc., 931 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. 4 customer parking spaces and 10 display spaces.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
We're continuing this.
I'm going to continue it, but did they leave?
Yes, they
I just want to give anybody that was here the chance.
Oh, okay.
I am going to be continuing this public hearing due to some related matters, but if there's anyone here to provide testimony, I will take it at this time. So again, if anybody's here to speak in favor of the application for a new Class II auto license from Best Buy Automotive, now would be the appropriate time to talk. Anybody in favor? Anyone here in favor? Is there anyone here in opposition? Anyone here in opposition? Is there anyone here neither for nor against? Anyone neither for nor against? And hearing none, Mr. Churchill, as we discussed earlier, or I mentioned a few moments ago, I'm going to continue this
Yes, sir.
public hearing.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
There was a gentleman here earlier, and I told him there would be a continuance,
Okay.
and that's probably why he didn't come up to the podium.
All right, so I will be continuing that to the meeting of August 18th. Okay, thank you. And we're going to a reading of the next notice, please. Next public hearing.
Public hearing to delete Section 5-7 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro in its entirety and insert the following language. Section 5-7.5, the procurement of supplies and services by the city shall be accomplished to the extent it is applicable in accordance with the Uniform Procurement Act contained in Chapter 30B of the General Laws, and to the extent it is not applicable in accordance with other applicable statutes and ordinances. All contracts made for services and supplies which are in the amount of $500 or more shall be in writing and signed by the mayor, except as otherwise provided herein, and the city auditor. Contracts made by the school committee which are in the amount of less than $10,000 need not be signed by the mayor or the city auditor. The signature of the city auditor at the amount defined in this section shall indicate that sufficient funds are available in the appropriate account to pay the contract amount.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this item? Anyone here to speak in favor? Good evening. Give me your name and address for the record.
Deborah Gould, 386 South Washington Street, North Attleboro.
Welcome.
Thank you. I sent down the communication through Mayor Dumas in order to have the existing ordinance amended to increase the purchase order amount from $200 to $500. In addition to amend $5,000, which was the old threshold under Chapter 30B, up to $10,000. It's more or less part of it's housekeeping, and part of it is just to bring things in line with inflation. The last time the purchase order threshold was amended was back in 1992, I believe. I know many of my colleagues here in the city will find it extremely useful to only have to enter purchase orders for acquisition of items greater than $5,000. Right now, they have to enter purchase orders if they're buying anything that's more than $200. We're not saying they can't enter purchase orders if people still choose to enter purchase orders and use that as a methodology to manage their department. We're just saying that they don't have to. So that's the $500, the $5,000. Presently, the school committee has a policy, and their policy is consistent with the change to Mass General Law. Our ordinance is not consistent with that presently, and right now, everything they do for $5,000 still has to come across my desk for signature on the purchase orders. It's I don't want to say an inconvenience for them because they're doing it. They have been doing this since 6 or 7 months ago when their policy changed, and I said the ordinance doesn't reflect that, so we need to keep it that way. I just think it would be beneficial if we all move to the same standard, so there's no confusion. So that's that one. The one thing I did want to ask is, I have that this is 5-7.5 to be deleted and amended.
Correct. And then there's going to be a separate one on 5712.
Right, because 5.7 is an entire section, so it's just the 5.75.
5, right,
Okay.
right.
I just don't want the entire ordinance to go away by accident, so I just wanted to mention that.
No, this is just, because we're looking at two parts into
Yep,
section 5.
so I hope I addressed the right one first.
Right, so this one is 5.75. Then
Yep.
there'll be another public hearing immediately following this one.
Okay.
On
This
5712.
is my first public hearing in 20 years. So, there's some additional relevant information for people inside the correspondence that was previously sent to council. Purchase orders for fiscal 2015, as of the time that I wrote the memo, we had over 5,815 purchase orders were put into our system here in the city, 3,229 of which were non-school related transactions, and 911 of those were purchase orders for amounts less than $500. So it would dramatically just reduce the purchase orders going through the system and time.
Thank you. Counselor,
Did I understand you to say, Deb, it went from 200 to 500, a purchase order, so
The dollar amount that's being suggested in the revised ordinance will eliminate the $200 provision and increase it to $500.
because that, in today's modern society, that's pretty tough to buy anything of any amount at all for less than $200 in supplies, so.
I went online and tried to do inflation factors and different ranges to figure out what would be a reasonable dollar amount, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of departments would be thrilled with 1,000. They'd be jumping for joy at 750, 500. I thought, from a management perspective as city auditor, I thought it was a reasonable first step, because one of the things that this is going to do for our departments is they're going to have to manage, their budgets appropriately. If they're not putting purchase orders in at $200 and they run out of money, they'll be back here next year at the end of the fiscal year saying, uh-oh, I forgot to put something in. I don't think that's likely to happen, but if it does, I wouldn't want to go from 200 to 1,000. And when I went online, depending on the utility that I did to measure worth, $200 from 1990 to 2014, the relative value of money, depending on the indice that I used, ranged from $324 to $583. So I thought 500 was kind of
Sounds good to me, Deb.
Yeah, thanks.
thank you. Are there any other questions? Counselor Denley.
But they like it.
Thank you, Ms.
Sorry.
Cleary. So pretty much just the state changed MGL, and so now there's a domino effect. And so now we can change dollar amounts and limits for purchase orders and for who has to sign off on school committee purchases. So we're just coming into compliance with what the state's allowing us to do.
Absolutely, on the $5,000 mark, which is the big dollar amount. The $200 threshold is an internal threshold established here in the city by ordinance pre-1990. But because Mass General Law changed and I had to address the $5,000 for the school, I figured I might as well address the $500, $200 for the city. The departments have regularly requested the increase of purchase orders go from $200 to a greater amount. So really, it is Mass General Law's change that I'm like, well, we might as well do all of it at once.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other concerns or questions? Councilor Conley.
So my concern is that everyone needs a boss. There has to be a system to watch everything. You're an auditor. That's your job. I don't like the feeling that something is opened up that a department manager can spend and then suddenly find out they're out of money because they didn't have a purchase order tracking system. So my concern is that we're releasing some of our control over the city tax dollars.
Well, I don't think you're releasing control in the sense that if somebody failed to put a purchase order in for $200 or $500 and went out and procured something, they failed to do that up front no matter what. So they'd be in the same boat. It's just the people who really are doing what they're supposed to do. A lot of departments, if you go to Home Depot today or Lowe's or a lot of local vendors and stuff, they're saying, I can't buy enough at $200. Not enough. Their needs are greater than $200. So in order for you to go to a store properly in our current system, you need to pull a requisition at your department level, have the requisition go through your own internal departmental system, whatever that may be, enter that requisition into the Munis system. Then in Munis, that requisition is reviewed and converted to a purchase order in the purchasing department. From the purchasing department, it comes to my office. I review it and sign it. From my signature, it returns to the mayor, goes to the mayor. The mayor signs off on it. At that point, his office returns it to the department, and they can actually go out and execute a purchase. So the difficulty for somebody is if they have an item that's of need for them and it exceeds $200 and they go to the store to buy it, they don't have the authority to buy that until something goes through that entire process. And if they fail to do all of that, what happens is if it's something that they really need to buy and they actually buy it, they're now in violation of an existing city ordinance. And then the purchase order comes through, dated, let's use today's date. The purchase order is going to say that the purchase order was actually approved on 7/21. I'm going to see that they bought something on 7/19 and they get in trouble for that. It gets written up in the audit, the management letter, and everybody's like, well, I really needed to, and I had the purchase order for $200, but it really cost me $250. Is it really that wise of a decision for us to continue? Well, don't buy that at Home Depot. You need to come back and go tomorrow for it into the purchase order. So theoretically, this provides them a greater deal of flexibility at the management level for them to have their employees go out and do something. I have similar concerns in that if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they're going to end up in a position where they don't have money. And I think what I've basically said to people is, at that point, you're going before the municipal council, and people are going to know that you didn't do what you were supposed to do, because I'm not going to be able to help you. There's nothing I can do at that point. So I'm not saying they can't put a purchase order in, but there's departments who need the flexibility to go a little bit higher than $200. I'm recommending $500. The mayor agreed to the $500 threshold. There is absolute risk involved, but we also pay department heads to manage their departments. And at some point, I think we have to trust that they're doing what we pay them to do. I can tell you though, as city auditor, I do, and I've told them, look, I'm gonna go downstairs and ask for it to go to $500, but don't think next year, at the end of the year, if you didn't have a purchase order or you show up with no money, that you can come over to me. You're going downstairs.
Okay. Councilor Parikh, and then, are you all set? Councilor Parikh, and then Councilor Churchill.
Thank you for coming in tonight. That made an awful lot of sense. And while you were speaking, I was thinking in my head, I know during the winter, the DPW, they were busting shovels left and right, so you knew they had to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, or buy rock salt or any of those kinds of things. That might be one of the instances that you're kind of referring to then?
It could be. The other thing is that one of the other things that department heads do, or some departments do on a regular basis, is they are going to put in what would be a blanket purchase order so that they have the ability to go to Home Depot for $1,000. This really takes care of the unexpected instance, typically, of somebody needs something that they have to go and get. Most of our bigger services are really for things that people contract for upfront at the beginning of the year. It's by state bid, it's by Compass, there's the Plymouth County bid. The big stuff really is covered up front. To date, just to give you a sense of that, to date, fiscal 2016, and we're only 21 days in, we have over 600, I wrote the number down because I checked before I came down. I think it was like 600, better than 600 purchase orders that are already pulled. The majority of those purchase orders are going to reflect annual bid items. We go out annually. 665 purchase orders have been entered into the Munis system so far. 464 of those are for the school. 41 of those are for $200 or less, and 90 of them range between $200 and $500. Some departments don't have significant sums of money, and the school department, incidentally, uses purchase orders for all expenses, regardless of the dollar amount. So they've deemed, in their world, they want that management tool. There are very few exceptions to the rule of purchase orders. We use them for pretty much everything. You can't use them in agency accounts. Munis won't let us. There's a couple of things that we don't use them for, but predominantly it's for everything.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Churchill.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
For someone who definitely got in trouble with you, I would just like to tell this honorable body that there are departments that need to make purchases on the weekend, and sometimes $200 will not cover it. And that's the biggest benefit that I can see to a department like police or fire, or even public works. If they have something broken or they need to do something on the weekend, it makes it much easier to operate. Because some departments are 7 days a week.
Right.
And I apologize for all the time I got in trouble with you.
Stop smiling.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns for the council? Okay. Anything else?
Not on this, thank
Not
you.
this one? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
Good evening, Council President, members of the Municipal Council. For the record, my name is Gary Arazian. I'm the Director of Planning and Development. It was not my intent to speak tonight other than the other matter that's going to come before the council. But as a department head, I think it's a very good idea to increase the capacity of the purchase order from $200 to $500. We're not going to become spendthrifts because we suddenly have the latitude to increase the purchase order to $300. So I just want to go on record. I'm sure there's my other colleagues would like to be here tonight, but since I'm here on another matter, I thought I'd get up and I'd speak my piece and endorse the ordinance amendment.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, Mr. Arazian? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Hearing none, Mr. Denley, this is in your committee. Do you see any need to continue this public hearing open?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So based on the testimony provided, as well as the recommendation of the chair of the ordinance committee, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed. And we'll go into a reading for the 6th public hearing, I believe it is.
Public hearing to delete section 5-7.12 in its entirety and insert the following. Section 5-7.12, upon receipt of any bill, invoice, account, or claim against the city, each hereinafter referred to as an invoice, other than a final judgment, the department, board, or officer authorized to create the liability, or if not, within the authority of any department, board, or officer than the mayor, hereinafter collectively referred to as a department, shall explain such invoice to determine if it is properly due and payable. If the department determines that the invoice is properly due and payable, then within 2 weeks of receiving the invoice, the department shall certify the invoice and immediately transmit the certified invoice to the accounting department. Except that each department shall so examine and certify invoices dated June of any calendar year so as to allow the processing of payment no later than the following July 15th, and such payment shall be deemed to be as the June 30th proceeding. Each department shall similarly examine and certify the payrolls of their respective employees and transmit them to the accounting department on a regular basis, so as to allow the payment of city employees in accordance with the pertinent collective bargaining agreements, the city personnel regulations, or the employment contract of such employees. Provided, however, that payroll shall be made up on the 30th day of June for that period between the last full payroll and the end of the fiscal year, which shall be paid on or before July 15th following, and shall be deemed to be as of June 30th proceeding. With each such certified invoice or payroll, the department shall submit to the accounting department a schedule giving the dates of the invoices or payroll, the payee, the appropriation chargeable therewith, and the amounts thereof.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Good evening again.
Good evening. Deb Gould, I'm the city auditor.
Thank you.
Thanks. So this particular ordinance, Ethel and I, this is a joint recommendation of the city treasurer and myself. One of the things that we're doing and is going through and making sure our house is really in order, very tightly and tidy, because our city treasurer will be retiring. And this current ordinance that is presented for you is a more accurate reflection of what actually will happen and has happened in the accounting and the treasurer's office. So the old ordinance, for example, said July 10th. The gap payable period really is July 15th. You know, so the dates were a little bit adjusted. One of the other things that was adjusted is the methodology of alternate weeks for warrants and that kind of stuff between the payrolls and that in the school department and the functionality of the warrant system. We do warrants weekly, and this reflects that. The other important thing from my perspective is to make sure that the departments know when you get an invoice, you have to provide that invoice for payment within 2 weeks so that we know people are actually submitting invoices timely for payment throughout the city. So this is really a lot of just housekeeping to make sure that this ordinance reflects current Mass General law, the current functional steps that are taken here in the city, and gap dates and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions up to this? Okay. It seems pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
At this point. And it does reflect what we're doing, so. Okay.
All set.
Is
All
there
right, thank you.
any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Hearing none, Mr. Dillon, do you see any need to keep this public hearing open?
No, sir.
Nor do I. Thank you. Based on the testimony and recommendation of Mr. Denley, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed, and we'll go into reading for the final public hearing of this evening.
Public hearing relative to the following loan order. Ordered that $4,350,000 is appropriated for the construction of water department equipment and maintenance facility, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and the cost of preparing, issuing, and marketing any bonds, notes, in connection therewith. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $4,350,000 under Section 7(3) of Chapter 44 of Mass General Laws or any other enabling authority. That $100,000 of the amount appropriated shall be allocated to the cost of preparing, issuing, and marketing any such borrowing, provided that any portion of such $100,000 is not needed for such costs of issue, may be used for project expenses, and that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council, Madam Clerk. My name is Barry Lacasse. I'm the Director of Budget and Administration for the City of Attleboro. I'm here to speak in favor of this loan authorization. I'm passing around now a smaller version of what you see on the boards here, which are the room layout and the elevations in the site plan for this new building. This project consists of the construction of a 12,800 square foot equipment and maintenance facility at the Water Department on West Street. The requested loan amount is $4.35 million, and in that packet that you have going around, the last page is a breakdown of that $4.35 million. This new equipment and maintenance facility is needed to address both current and future maintenance and storage needs of the Water Department. For example, the Water Department is losing about 6,400 square feet from the demolition of the old police station, which is being demolished as part of the new roadway that's going in. The existing Water Department maintenance building is inadequate, and in fact, this project here was in the 2015 to 2019 capital improvements plan, which this honorable body supported. The design of this new facility and the procurement of the architects has been fully evaluated and vetted by the Municipal Building Commission. And as a matter of fact, the MBC will be overseeing the construction of this new facility as well. And although this new building is actually less than half the size of the new DPW building, this was about 12,800 square feet. The DPW building was about 27,000 square feet. They do share a lot in common. Both are prefabricated metal buildings with a sloping shed roof. both utilitarian design utilizing input from the department heads, which was very important. With the DPW building, and again with the water department building, we reached out to the employees that are going to be using this building on a daily basis to find out what their needs are. And we found that so useful in the DPW design that we repeated it in the water building design. In fact, both this building and the DPW building were designed by the same architects, RGP of Providence, and both will have the same clerk of the works, which is ABM Group, also from Rhode Island. In the handouts I've given you, I know they're small and they're hard to read, which is why we wanted to have the full-size ones here. I just wanted to go through very quickly the rooms that are going to be in this building. There are 4 garage doors leading to a large storage area. And you'll see that on that plan on the top left. And the storage area that I'm talking about with the 4 garage doors is on the right-hand side. There are 3 garage doors on the left-hand side leading to 3 repair bays. There's 3 lockable storage rooms, one for meter storage, one for brass storage, and one for just general storage. There's 1 water meter testing room, 1 tool room, 1 welding shop, 1 electrical room, 1 mechanical room, 3 small offices, a men's and women's room, and a janitor's closet. I have with me tonight Acting Superintendent of Water, Paul Kennedy, who is here to answer any questions that you may have about the needs of the water department for a new facility. Moving on May 9th of 2014, this council approved an appropriation of about $155,400 from water retained earnings so that the city could hire Horsley Witten Group to perform design work, site preparation, permitting, and stormwater improvements. And so also with me tonight is Director of Planning and Development, Gary Erasian, to talk a little bit about those stormwater improvements that are going along with this project. Finally, there's about $818,000 of water debt service dropping off in FY17.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure, $817,955 to be exact. And even assuming that the Hoppin Hill project and the Oak Hill Tank project are completed and fully hit the FY17 budget, it does not appear that the debt service for these 3 projects, Hoppin Hill, Oak Hill, and this project, are going to exceed that amount of debt falling off in FY17, which is a good thing. So at this point, I want to just turn it over to Paul Kennedy in the event that you have any questions about the needs of the water department. Okay, Paul.
Paul Kennedy, acting wastewater.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Churchill?
Good evening, sir. When this whole project looked like it was going to piggyback on top of the Reserve Center, is this the same size building that you were looking at that time?
Reserve Center?
They were going to, you were going to get a building down there temporarily, am I not correct?
I'm not.
While we were tearing this thing apart, we were going to, the project for the Reserve Center was going to take a lot longer than the project on Lamb Street.
Right, the reserve, if I could just talk, the Reserve Center was primarily for the DPW.
Correct, but there was going to be a water department building too also, wasn't there?
There was going to be a little bit of storage, but mainly this water building was going to be for their own
I
storage
understand
units.
that. My question is, how much different is this compared to what you first looked at? Is it twice as big, 3 times as big?
When they looked at it, I wasn't involved.
Okay.
I've only been in the water department since January.
Barry, could you answer that? Is this like 3 times bigger than what's going to be a temporary building?
I wouldn't say 3 times bigger, Mr. Churchill. I don't recall the exact dimensions because, as you remember, the Army Reserve Center was all chopped up.
Correct.
There was going to be a separate building being constructed, and we're going to utilize at some point the existing repair facility once the Army moved out. So it was almost going to be, when we were looking at the Army Reserve Center, we were going to build the water building first while the construction at the Army Center took place, so that we would have a place to repair some of the other city trucks.
So the follow-up to my question is, we would have this temporary building, and then we were going to build a permanent building. Was that permanent building, in addition to this temporary building, going to be this big, or is this the culmination of both?
Well, let me answer it this way. This size building is exactly what the water department needs. The square footage and the bays and the storage. Whether or not that equals what we would have had temporarily at the Army Reserve Center, I'm not sure about.
Okay, what I'm getting at, sir, is that if we had a temporary building and then we did a permanent building, I don't know if we would have abandoned, would you have abandoned the temporary building or used both? So this is the culmination of both?
For the water department, yes.
Yes, that's what
yes,
okay.
That's true.
Thank you.
Other comment?
So Barry, how many square feet does the water department currently have for repair, storage, and water testing, and what's gonna go on in this building?
That's a good question. The existing maintenance facility at the water department, if you've ever been down there, is a single door shed, one garage door. I think it has some storage up top, maybe a little storage in an attic. It's completely inadequate. I don't even know if it's heated.
It used to be, when they built the water treatment plant years ago, they put up that little metal building that they're using now for a maintenance garage, and it was actually housed the pilot plant for the new water treatment plant. Once all the equipment was removed out of there, they had an empty building, and they started using that for their repairs of their vehicles.
So the building that's up the hill, that is a metal building like this, is currently being used for storage and repair of vehicles?
Mostly repair. It's mostly inadequate for any storage as well.
And that building is 10,000 square feet?
You know, I don't have the dimensions for that building. I know it's a single stall building. I'm not sure of the exact dimensions.
My other question is that for the $4,350,000, which comes out to $339.84 a square foot, how much of that is for the building versus the fit out?
Sure. If you look at the last page on the handout I gave you. The construction base bid is $3.6 million. That's the second line from the bottom. The bonding costs are $100,000. The stormwater upgrades that Mr. Arazian's going to speak about are estimated to be $350,000. We have furniture and fixtures, telephone and computer upgrades, and then with the clerk of the works, and then a small contingency.
I don't think this answers my question. Inside that construction base bid, you have equipment that they're going to use, or are you ripping are you not buying any new equipment for the garage?
Actually, on your floor plan that you have before you, in the upper left-hand corner, I know it's hard to read, but that's the equipment list that's included in that $3.6 million.
So what's the value of the equipment?
They don't, it was all bid at one time, so all that equipment is part of the base bid. Yeah. Because the reason for that, Mr. Conti, is that a lot of this equipment is going to be actually affixed to the property. The lifts, for example, are
The
affixed to
fixtures,
the property.
the fixtures, right.
They're fixtures, so it's not like you slide something in. That's why we have furniture and fixtures as a separate line item. Those are the, the desks, the chairs, things like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Uncle Blair?
Just to, I've been in that service garage up there many times over the last 16 years or whatever. It's inadequate. It was never designed to be a repair facility. They have a lift in there that's inadequate to pick up most of our vehicles at the water department. So not only is it inadequate, and it's sometimes unsafe to use for what they're using it for. That building would probably be used for outside maintenance department, something that's less hazardous too to the water surrounding it. The new building has been thoroughly designed. I think Paul will agree that it's been scrutinized, it's bare minimal. There's no frills attached to it. I've looked over the plans myself as it's gone along. I talked to Paul before, as I've talked to guys at the highway department. It's time that when we buy this equipment that we're buying today for the future, trucks, backhoes, whatever, that equipment should not be left outside. And we're doing a lot of that throughout the city now. And with these two new buildings, we should definitely improve the longevity of the equipment we're buying, because we have with these buildings that we're doing, we will have the proper storage area for them. And anything you take mechanical and leave outside to the weather, you have definite longevity problems. So I think this has been adequately designed between the new building and the old building that we use down there for water distribution center. We should have ample storage to store not only our equipment, but our supplies that are left outside, pipes, hydrants, big valves. We should be up to date in our water department for decades with this plan. I think it was good future planning, and I think it's money well spent, and we will reap the benefits in the end.
Thank you. Councilman Churchill.
So were there any, thank you, Mr. President, were there any conservation concerns that the engineer had to deal with in the design of this building, being near the watershed?
I'll ask Mr. Rajan to answer that.
Do you want to repeat the question for Mr. Rajan?
I did.
You got it? Okay.
Did you get that, Gary?
Yes, I was going to address it anyhow. Councilor Churchill.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Gary Arajan. I'm the city's Director of Planning and Development. I'm here also to speak in favor of the loan order. I'd like to tell the city council is that this project went through a very thorough and complete permitting process through our local boards and commissions. Back in April of 2015, the planning board issued a permit for major site plan review approval. It issued a special permit for construction within the Orse Pond Water Resource Protection District. The Conservation Commission issued an order of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act. The Conservation Commission issued an order of conditions under the local Wetlands Protection Ordinance, and the Conservation Commission issued a permit, a stormwater permit under our local stormwater ordinance, and also under DEP regulations. Given the location of the site, clearly there was heightened interest on the part of the mayor's office, my department, and my department in anticipation of what the expectations would be of the planning board and the Conservation Commission. So when we selected this site for this purpose, I brought some matters to the mayor's attention, and he wholeheartedly supported them. So when we hired Horsley Witten Group to prepare this, if I may, to prepare the site plan, if you can't hear me, I'll bring that over, or I can slide these over. When we hired Horsley Witten Group to prepare just the site plan, we actually added some other features to their contract, given, again, the location of the project site to Orse Pond. What we also asked them to do is take a look at the stormwater management system of the property of the water treatment plant. Remember, that was constructed back in 1995, and certainly the standards of water treatment or stormwater treatment back in 1995 certainly don't meet the standards of today. So we had them take a look at not only the site plan of this site, if I may, and of course the stormwater management system of the site. It's not shown here, but we also had them take a look at the entire stormwater management system of the water treatment plant itself as a second protection. The first being this, the second being the entire property. We then looked at the subwatershed of Orse Pond. So we actually went offset as well. And we wanted to make sure that when this application came before the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, that we took all reasonable engineering, planning studies to ensure protection of the city's water supply. So if you may, what I'd like to do right now, I know Barry handed out, gave you an outline, a handout. You can, just want to hand this out as well. What I asked, thank you, you can hand that out. What I asked Horsley Witten Group to do is to graphically show the improvements. So, there you have it.
Here, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can have Mark's.
Oh, it was 11, okay. There are three areas that I just want to have you just quickly look at. One says EX. Those are existing, EX1 through EX6. It's the center column. Those are all existing stormwater structures in the area. Those would remain. The second one, it says UC1 through UC13. Those are all under construction. Those are all part of Tiffany Street upgrade. So I just want to bring your attention to those. What is important is to bring to your attention what is labeled WTP. It's Water Treatment Plant 1 through Water Treatment Plant 9. Where you see those in red, those are all the upgrades that we're putting into that area to ensure the protection of the city's water supply and to ensure the water quality of Morris Pond and the watershed. In addition to all that, one of the other features that we built into the design that the commission, the Conservation Commission really embraced, is this area here that's in between the proposed new building and Morris Pond. We had Horsley Witten Group prepare a complete restoration plan. You guys are still looking at that, so we didn't look up, so I'm sorry.
Sorry, Gary.
Sorry. So here's the proposed building, Morris Pond. This vast area over here, there is an extensive restoration plan here as well. When we had the public hearing before the Conservation Commission, they said, my God, where did this come from? And they thanked Horsley Witten Group. And Horsley Witten Group made it a point to say the administration directed them to do that. So in addition to all the upgrades that we're proposing, I think, which is about $350,000, Larry?
Yes.
That's above and beyond the stormwater management system for this site. We're also proposing an extensive restoration of this entire area as well, which again, it's in the minutes, I'm sure you believe me, but the Conservation Commission was thrilled that we included this upgrade as well over here. So let me tell you, nothing really gets by us than the fact that we were going to propose this building here. My staff and I were incredibly diligent to make sure that the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, we anticipated what their expectations would be. And we built all those features into this project, and it would all be constructed all as one contract.
Mr.
Thank you.
Churchill, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As usual, Gary went overboard. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Be diligent.
Oh, right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Arasian at this time? Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Okay.
Mr. President, I think that concludes our presentation of those. Speaking in
Okay.
favor.
Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. Kirby?
Thank you, Mr. Lacasse. So this wouldn't be coming on to the debt until 2017?
That's correct.
And so you don't, and if I can follow up,
Yeah.
Mr. President, with Hoppin Hill and the other, what's the other project?
Yeah, it's the Oak Hill tank.
Oak Hill tank.
The refurbishing of the Oak Hill tank.
And all three projects will be able to fit within the debt capacity. We won't have to be raising the water rate at this time because of these projects?
No, what I'm saying is that the debt that's coming off in 17 is greater than the debt service for these three projects.
Okay. So we should fit within without affecting the water users' rate? We should.
Good.
In the best of all worlds.
The Oak Hill tank has not gone out to bid yet.
Yep.
I put an estimate of $2.8 million for that. Hoppin Hill is about $1.5 million. And if your honorable body approves this loan authorization, that's $4.350. So the debt service on those three projects, assuming they all hit in 17, which they aren't likely to, it's more likely that it will have a temporary interest payment in 17 for some of these projects. But even assuming we had them all hit in 17, what I am saying is that the debt service falling off is greater than this debt service.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Or any of these? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
As always, we're around if you have any questions in my office tomorrow, so if something else comes to mind, just let us know.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Hearing none. Mr. Kirby, do you
Yes.
see any need for this public hearing to be continued open?
No, I do not.
I don't either. So based on the testimony presented and the recommendation of Mr. Kirby, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed. And that does include all of our public hearings scheduled for this evening. Before I go on to reading the mayor's communication, does anybody need a break? I know we've been sitting up about 90 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to reading of the mayor's communication at this time.
July 21st, 2015. Dear municipal councilors, for your information, the Historical Commission has appointed Leonard Yutkins, 335 Clinton Street, and James Hanley, 34 Rosewood Avenue, to fill 2 unexpired terms as associate members of the Historical Commission. Both terms will expire February 2016. Council confirmation is not needed for this appointment. I respectfully submit a communication from Chief Assessor Stanley Nasowitz regarding the need for funds to provide assessment and maintenance work for FY 2016. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $24,600 from Citywide Reserve Fund for Transfer account to the Assessor's Revaluation account. Upon approval, the balance in the Reserve Fund for Transfer account will be $375,400. There are copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Library Director Joan Pilkington Smith regarding a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts to the City of Attleboro for the community-wide Big Read program of approximately $10,000. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve the expenditure of such funds and any other future grant amendments to support the Big Read program activities as authorized by the granting authority. Details of the program will be announced to the public in July. There are copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, and I also wanted to just remind councilors that on Thursday evening, Ms. Smith will be here to provide information, as she is usually during one of our July meetings, about the Big Read program for this year, including the title. Okay, so that'll be Thursday night. Thank you.
As you may recall, in a letter dated October 23rd, 2014, City Solicitor Robert Mangiarotti recommended that the city accept title for 4 drainage areas in Meadow Sweet Farms subdivision. Mr. Mangiarotti has worked with the original developer and homeowners association to obtain a deed for these drainage areas and has secured signatures from all parties who have interest. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to accept the release deed from Allen Homes Limited Partnership and the trustees of Meadow Sweet Farm Trust for the land shown as lots 1K, 1L, 1M, and 59 on Assessors Map 171 pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C. This deed would be accepted in lieu of foreclosure of tax title accounts now pending. There are copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding FY 2016 911 training grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, EOPSS, in the amount of approximately $19,486. Please note there is no matching requirement. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments. Monies from this grant must be expended no later than June 30th, 2016.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding the need to close Fund 503, Sale of City Property Fund. This fund was created by ordinance in May 1971 for the sale of tangible city-owned property. Subsequently, the ordinance was amended several times and now is consistent with Massachusetts General Law which does not provide for the segregation of funds for the sale of city-owned property. Thus, with the exception of the money generated by the sale of surplus police vehicles and vehicles-related equipment that the Honorable Municipal Council has authorized to be deposited into the revolving fund under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, revenue generated through the sale of city-owned property is a general fund receipt. As such, the revenue would be a general fund receipt and incorporated into the local receipts for the budgeting purposes and the establishment of the city's tax rate. Again, these funds cannot be segregated in a separate fund and shall be treated as general fund receipts. The disposition of assets from the water and wastewater enterprise funds are tracked separately within Fund 2503. Revenue generated from the sale of tangible property associated with the water and wastewater enterprise fund will be deposited in representative enterprise fund. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to close Fund 2503, sale of city property, as follows. Transfer $41,871.30 from sale of city property other financing uses to the following accounts. $22,999.46 to general fund other financing sources. These funds will be reported on the FY16 recap and are therefore available for supplemental appropriation. $1,461 to wastewater enterprise fund other funding sources. $17,410.84 to water enterprise fund other funding sources. There are copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the need for funds for replacement of the septic system at Briggs Corner Fire Station. The septic system at Briggs Corner Fire Station is approximately 60 years old and has begun to fail. Replacement of the septic system was included in the FY 2016 Capital Improvements Program for the Fire Department as a Priority 1 project. As you are aware, the city's health agent, Alan Perry, was checking the references of the lowest bidder, as the repairs need to be done by a qualified and reputable installer. The references have been verified and confirmed that they are capable of completing the required work for this project. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $18,350 to fire septic replacement account. There are copies in your packet.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
As you may recall from earlier this year, your honorable body approved the expenditure of Sustainable Materials Recovery Program municipal grant awarded to the Attleboro Department of Environmental Protection awarded by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, Mass DEP, for for a waste reduction enforcement coordinator. In order to properly account for the fund, the city's portion for the 2 part-time coordinators, 19 hours per week in the health department, I hereby request your honorable body to approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $7,640 to the health department transfer to waste reduction coordinator grant, and to further authorize the auditor's office to complete the required accounting transaction to account for this grant.
Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding surplus supplies that the Council on Aging would like to declare surplus, and hereby respectfully request your honorable body to declare the following a surplus and available for disposition. There are copies in your packet. 4 red cloth guest chairs, good to fair condition. 1 vinyl love seat, good condition. 1 rose-colored rocker, good condition. 2 desk chairs, fair condition. 6 blue cloth guest chairs, good to fair condition. 1 circular dining table, broken.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding paying a previous year's bill in the amount of $190 for a new employee's physical examination. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $190 from water professional services to water previous year bills. There are copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
For your information, I respectfully submit a communication from Planning and Development Director Gary Arazian regarding the possible opportunity to renovate Angel Park located on Park Street. Mr. Arazian advises that in anticipation of an contingent upon the availability of funds, the Executive Office of Energy Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services, is administrating the FY 2016 grant for Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities, PARC, P-A-R-C program. The renovation and improvement of Angel Park would include new playground equipment for children 6 months to 4 years old, as well as children 5 to 12 years. New playground surface, new fencing around the playground, rejuvenation of the open lawn area, including new trees, new lawn, landscaping, and irrigation, site furnishing, including picnic tables and benches, decorative lighting, and improvements to a memorial area. The planning staff is working with the Department of Parks and Forestry and the Recreation Department on this project. The planning staff prepared and filed a park grant application to EOEEA-DCS on July 15th for funds to help renovate the park. As progress is made, my office will inform and update the municipal council. No action is needed at this time. There are copies in your packets. For your information, I respectfully submit a communication from Planning and Development Director Gary Arazian regarding the possible opportunity to purchase a conservation restriction on 57.68 plus or minus acre parcel of pristine land, land located on Wilmar Street and Smith Street. Mr. Arazian advises that in anticipation and contingent upon the availability of funds, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services, is administering the FY 2016 grant round for the land acquisition for natural diversity land program. The purchase of the conservation restriction on a 57.68 plus or minus acre parcel of real estate, previously farmland, would be set aside for open space and passive recreation purposes for the enjoyment of the general public. It consists of an 18th century farmhouse, hayfields, woodlands, wetlands, and potential vernal fields. The planning staff is working with the Conservation Commission, Attleboro Land Trust, and the Massachusetts Audubon Society on this project. The planning staff prepared and filed a land grant application with EOEEA-DCS on July 15th for the funds to help purchase the conservation restriction. As progress is made, my office will inform and update the Honorable Municipal Council. No action is needed at this time. I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding unused funds for completed projects. As you are aware, the funds cannot be utilized for any other purpose without authorization from your honorable body. Therefore, the following is submitted for your consideration. There are copies in your packets. There remains $121.80 in account 1100420-524029. These funds are the balance of the appropriation of the Municipal Council on June 17, 2014 for the purpose of trench repairs throughout the city. The original source of funding for the project was the general fund budget. Therefore, the funds are not restricted. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $121.80 from account 1100420-524029, continuing appropriation fund DPW, street repair, to account 110059000, continuing appropriation fund, other financing uses, and to further transfer $128 from the continuing appropriation fund, other financing uses, to general fund, other financing uses. This action would close the project to the general fund. There remains $1,790 in account 1100210-58 2510. These funds are the balance of an appropriation of the municipal council on July 17th, 2014 for the replacement of the showers at the Attleboro Police Station. This project is complete. The original source of the funds for this project was a general fund supplemental appropriation. Therefore, the funds are not restricted. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $1,790 from continuing appropriation fund police renovations to continuing appropriation fund other financing uses, and to further transfer $1,790 from continuing appropriation fund other financing uses to general fund other financing sources. This action would close the project to the general fund. There remains $22.80 in Fund 3418, Attleboro High School Apprentice Cafe. These funds are the balance of an appropriation of the municipal council on December 10th, 2013. The original source of these funds was free cash. Therefore, the funds are not restricted. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $22.80 from Apprentice Cafe other financing uses to general fund other financing sources. This action would close the fund to the general fund.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding the current review of available funds in the General Government Capital Projects Fund Group, Fund 3512. The available amount in Fund 3512 is $4,237.50, the remainder of an equipment loan authorization from December 3rd, 2009. In an effort to close the fund, the city auditor spoke with Budget and Administration Director Barry Lacasse, who identified a need for additional funds at the concession stand project. City Treasurer Ethel Sandback confirmed this project meets the economic life criteria of these restricted funds. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $4,237.50 from equipment loan other financing uses to Attleboro High School Athletic Complex other financing sources. There are copies in your packets.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please.
And it is signed sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Any other communications?
I have a certificate of vote from the Attleboro Planning Board, voting in the affirmative, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, to recommend approval of loan order for $4,350,000 is appropriated for the construction of the Water Department equipment and maintenance facility.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I have a new application for a 2015 Class 2 auto license from David Montegro, doing business as Old School Auto Sales, 187 Cumberland Avenue, Attleboro, Mass. 16 display spaces and 4 customer parking spaces.
License Committee, please. And Councilor Churchill, this matter calls for requires a public hearing. Would you like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, August 18th?
Yes, sir.
Second?
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That hearing will be on the 18th. Thank you.
I have a 2015 renewal application to waive Section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine on city property from the Friends of Capron Park Zoo, care of Brian Hatch, 201 County Street, Attleboro, Mass. On Saturday, September 12th, 2015 at Capron Park Zoo from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Till 10 p.m.
License Committee, please. And Councilor Churchill, this too requires a public hearing. Would you like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, August 18th?
Same day, yes, sir. Mr. President.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That hearing will be on the 18th also.
I have a renewal application to waive Section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine at outside tables on the sidewalk in front of a restaurant from Sangria's, 59 Park Street, Attleboro, Mass.
License Committee, please. And again, this matter, Councilor Churchill, also requires a public hearing. I would like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, August 18th.
Same date, yes, Mr. President.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Those are the 3 hearings we'll be having on the 18th, as well as a continuation of the other license matter. Thank you.
I have a communication from financial analyst James Castro stating he will not seek reappointment.
Copy to all members.
I have an invitation to the South Attleboro Lions and South Attleboro Village Lions Club announcing the annual Lee's Pond Festival on Saturday, September 19th.
Copy to all members, please.
I have a communication from Attorney Roger Ferris to Ron Churchill, representing Mona. I'm not even going to try that last name, I'm sorry. Previous license holder for Best Buy Automotive, 931 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass., in opposition to the new license for Best Buy Automotive and Tire, Inc.
License Committee, please, and a copy to all members.
I have a communication from School Committee Chairman David Murphy relative to his presentation to the Municipal Council on Thursday, July 23rd, 2015.
Copy to all members. I believe that was put in your mailbox earlier today.
And finally, I have a communication, which is a reference letter from, for Matthew Cody, 32 Russell Tennant Drive, Attleboro, Mass., in support of Jason St. Jean's application for a hawkers and peddlers license.
License Committee, please.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Would entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole?
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We're now in the Committee of the Whole. If there's anyone who has business to bring to the attention of the City Council, now would be the appropriate time. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're now back to regular business. There is no, normally we would be doing committee reports, but there are no committee reports at this time. Similarly, there's no old business or any new business, so I'm going to make a motion that the regular meeting be adjourned. But before I do that, I just want to mention that we will be having some committee meetings tonight for a couple of, there are a few committees that have things ready to go. Not the stuff that came tonight, but that had come previously. I think there's 4 committees, I believe. And then on Thursday night when we come, that's going to be a combination of both a regular meeting and a committee meeting, where we are going to be having as I mentioned earlier, the big read. Our people will be coming in. As you saw in the communication just read, Mr. Murphy will be coming in with an update to the council. He's not going to be here till around 8:30 on that night, and I know that the Personnel Committee, I believe, also has the new Veterans Agent, I think it is. Correct. If I remember correctly, will be coming in. So my thought on Thursday night is we will begin the regular meeting so that we will have the presentation by the big. There are no public hearings that will be held scheduled for Thursday night. We will then take a recess to do the committee reports, and then we'll come back and we'll be having Mr. Murphy. We'll also be having the committee reports at that time too. So that's going to be the kind of the game plan for the rest of this week. Okay, Councilor Hagan, do you have a question?
I had told Linda I'm not having a committee tonight because he's coming Thursday,
Right.
so we're doing that. And then I had just told him to communicate with Linda about the time that you guys thought would
Okay.
be appropriate.
Yeah, and I think that's already been taken care of. So I'm not expecting every committee to be meeting tonight necessarily. There are only a few that needed to do things. And actually, even though there were things from the last meeting you can deal with tonight, if you prefer to deal with them on Thursday night, you can do it, you can do it at that time. Good question.
Just because we're doing everything so much out of order next week, on the next meeting, are we going to suspend the rules?
I think it would have to, because Mr. Murphy, actually, he cannot be here till sometime after 8 o'clock. So I was figuring that I would have to suspend the rules in order to accommodate having him come in particular. But a lot of the other things that we normally do, we've taken care of. Is that there are no public hearings scheduled for Thursday night. But we're going to be following, but we posted both a regular meeting and committee meetings. Are there any committee meetings that are not going to be held tonight, that you know of right now? Okay, so the only ones will be, for tonight, will be what, ordinance?
I think I have stuff.
You think you have stuff? You take a look at it, and Councilor Connie, and also, just tip it up. So we have a similar committee meeting tonight. Which will probably help alleviate some of the matters on Thursday. So that being said, I'm going to entertain, if there are any questions, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. We're adjourned at 8:46.
Mr. Churchill, I'm going first Thursday. Did you want to go first tonight?
There's a schedule.
Yeah, there's a schedule for you on schedule.
Who's good? Oh, I see.
Pass the time, if you want to go first.
Personnel, Human Services, then City
Personnel,
Property.
Human Services,
Don't
city
waive that.
property, public safety, transportation, traffic, public works, that have to circle. So, I don't know.
It's after 7, so anyone can go in any order.
That's true. Once we get past the first one, we usually have to order at that point.
Even though it's after the time.
That's quick too.
Yeah, ours are all quick. Walters will take a while.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I got one for you.
That'll make it quicker, thank you.
Anything I can do to help you make
Well,
it quicker,
I
sir?
can see that. I'd like to call the licensing committee at, subcommittee at 8:47. 3 motions this evening. From the supplemental docket of July 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2015 renewal and keep a stand in public place from Carlos M. Silva, Signa, 59 Park Street, Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
Any comments? I have no problem with this. If no one else has any comments, okay.
Aye.
Say what?
All in favor?
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Has it been that long that I forgot that already?
You know I like to nonchalantly.
I don't know. From the docket of June 16, 2015, entertain a motion to approve the application from Liquid Environmental Solutions for a new above-ground storage license for 2 above-ground 10,000-gallon methanol tanks and 1 above-ground 5,000-gallon windshield wiper fluid tank at 527 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
And as you know, the gentleman was here this evening. I had some concerns too, as Walter Thibodeau does, but as I was reminded by Betty, you can't come before this council unless the fire chief signs it. And I can speak from personal experience, the place was inspected on a regular basis when it was operating indoors. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And my last one is from the same docket of June 16th, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2015 new hawkers and peddlers license from Jason St. Jean, 7 Washington Drive, Johnston, Rhode Island.
Second.
And as Betty read, I have a letter from someone saying that she's a person of good character, and I'd like to at least bring it up for a vote next
Was
week.
this the energy one?
Say again, please.
Was this the energy one? Was that the guy?
No.
No.
She
Which
came
one is
before us
this
before, I
for?
believe.
Oh, it's for the
No,
woman.
no,
Yes.
this is Jason. This is the
Jason.
man.
Yeah, it wasn't the door-to-door hawker for these energy one. It wasn't that one.
No, I
That
think
has
it
not come out
is.
yet.
I think it
Because
is.
she was a female, right?
Yeah, and she's right underneath it from the June 2nd docket.
Correct.
So it is him. It is the gentleman from the solar panel company, I believe.
Oh. It could be. I think you're right, Counselor.
Because did we want to get more information on that, or
So,
what?
I mean, I'm willing to vote it yes out of committee, and then I'm going to vote no in front of full council.
Because I had some concerns, because just within the past couple weeks, I actually had people going through the neighborhood, and my dog was barking, so I went outside and I said, do you have any, what's going on, da-da-da, and he was, it wasn't this gentleman, but it was another group where they had a different type of license through the mayor's office to go. It was no solicitation, but he was rather rude. And when I said I was all set, he continued and continued. I said I was all set. I'm aware of the rules, right? So then he was rather rude abruptly, and then he was dropping the mayor's secretary's name, and I had gone to speak to her to ask her if she knew him. And then he said basically, I'll come back when your husband's home. And I said, well, that would be rather hard since I'm not married. And
He's not coming back.
So I did go up, and I believe the mayor's office did call the company that the person was associated with, and this is just something that when it does come out of committee, I was rather concerned about the abruptness, the behavior, and that was just some of the concerns, and I know Councilor Cooper is absent tonight, but I know he had brought up people knocking on his neighborhood, and he had called the police, because I actually called the police to say, do they have a license? He's been through the neighborhood twice. What's going on? And it just, the behavior, and if he, and I actually, and I'm not the type of person that is, I'm so-and-so, but after he was rather rude and said he'd come back with my husband home, I said, well, I am a city councilor. Do you have any licenses on you, any identification? So I did call the police. I was just concerned if he would talk to other people that way, so that's all.
Thank you,
I'm
Counselor.
sorry,
Counselor Blair.
I stepped out for a second to use the facilities, but is this the gentleman who's selling solar? Solar?
Yeah.
Solar?
Solar energy.
Probably 35-ish, fairly good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I bumped into him. He also was at my house, and I got a call from my wife, and she was set back and rather nervous. So she called, and I said, is he gone? She said, yes. And I said, you see a car? No. So a short time later, I went home at the end of the day, and on Tyler Street, I seen a car parked on the side of the road, not in front of a house at all. So I pulled around, come back, and I was facing the opposite direction, and I didn't get out of my truck. I rolled the window down, and he goes, his, and I said, by any chance you selling solar? And he said, yes, I am. Right? And I said, same as I overheard you said. I said, do you have a hawkers and peddlers license? And he said, no, why should I? And I gave him my card. And I said, you should need one to go door-to-door knocking. Furthermore, you know, one of the houses you stopped at, you were very impolite and inconsiderate.
So is this the same gentleman we're talking about? Counselor? Or
Not
is
the
this,
one that
this is
came
another
here.
vendor in the neighborhood?
Yeah, this was
All right.
not the gentleman that
Right.
came and
Okay.
talked. But I told him
The
that if
door-to-door.
any further problems, I would make sure that it was an arrestable offense.
Not to belay this, the letter that was given to the council secretary, I just got this evening, I apologize, I have not read it, in support of this gentleman. One of my concerns is we have someone who's at least applied for a license,
Yeah.
and we have people who are selling without a license. And there's got to be some equity here. If someone's willing to come before this honorable body and say that he's, you know, I don't know how far you want to scrutinize him, and I'm only speaking from myself, that if he passed the squeaky clean test, I think we should consider him. But if there's someone out there doing just the same thing without even considering getting a license, I think we need to take that into consideration too.
I just finish up.
Okay, follow up, Peter.
Also, I share your same feelings, because I have a personal friend who I employed as a youngster who is now 50, and he sells for Comcast. And he's obtained a state license. He has a very strict military clearance that he had gone through, and he does have a hawkers and peddlers license. And he called me because of what's going on, and he said he's always been very polite. I know the person personally. He gets most of his referrals from new home buyers. That's where he really targets people that are moving into the area. But he says he gets a lot of his business from door to door in certain areas, and he's licensed in surrounding towns. And it brought to my attention, as you said, there's some people out there that do the job, get the required licenses, pass the Corey checks and whatnot.
Right.
And I would feel amiss, and I know I spoke very vehemently about it, not having hawkers and peddlers, but I think, like you say, if they go through the process and they are reputable and they present themselves with the right identification, then it'd be hard for me to tell somebody he couldn't work.
Counselor.
I agree with Councilor Blair and with you. As an ordinance, we set forth the requirements by which you need to, and all the things that the hoops you have to jump through to acquire a hawkers and peddlers license. we fundamentally, as a group or individually, may not feel that door-to-door sales is something that we want to really entertain in the city of Attleboro, that's a conversation for a different time. These are two separate things that we can't just deny this gentleman, because that is something how we're feeling right now. So I would support this in front of the full council. If we want to have a conversation or someone wants to put new business forward about limiting door-to-door sales, let's have the conversation, but I don't think we should necessarily penalize this particular gentleman for
We
it.
could, if I may, yes, sir, Counselor, we could beat this to death, but what about kids who come and knocking on your door and want to shovel your driveway? They're hawking and peddling.
Yeah, but
I mean, what I'm trying to say is, we've got someone here that's
No,
willing to
and I
go
agree
through the
with
loop,
you.
and we should give that consideration.
Yep, and I agree with you completely.
Yes, Counselor Jim.
Yes, so during the public hearing, I asked the gentleman to get back to us with information about his business and what percent profits he actually thinks he earns going door to door, and whether or not his greater company that he represents has ever been a party to any litigation or anything. Did he respond back to you or, to your knowledge, to Linda with any of that information?
I can answer that question. There was nothing in my mailbox, and Linda has not approached me about that. Do you think that he's given up? Or he's just taking it for granted that we're gonna give him the license? There's two questions.
I don't suppose to be in his head. I just, I thought that some of the questions I asked were pretty matter of fact. I know as a member of the state council, lots of us are party to litigation all the time just by sitting on this body. Yeah, I see lots of nods, right? So I find it really, I'm hesitant when I hear, oh no, this company's never been in litigation ever. No one's ever sued us for doing a bad job. It's never occurred ever. And then to get no backup information concerns me, and I don't really want to go digging myself. I'm not sure if that's my place, but I would have liked to have had him actually follow up with what he said he would and either give us information or something saying, no, we actually have never been a party to litigation ever, which would be kind of a miracle for any business. So I'm willing to vote yes tonight out of committee to bring it forward to the full council and then let the full council make its decision.
I will try to get that information for you, Counselor, as if he did come back to her, and if she did not, I will try to get a hold of him and ask him why not.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of bringing it up?
Aye.
Okay.
No. 2-1.
2 to 1?
Yeah.
Passed.
Passes.
And the licensing committee comes to an end at 8:59.
Second.
Thank you.
Close enough. I have one, the meeting's gonna take longer, I think, than the discussion.
What's everybody looking for tonight? Richard stumbled off, stumbled back, you
All right,
stumbled
back.
in.
Meniscus is inflamed.
I have her extended the knee when moving, so. Call budget appropriate, you'll have to be my second, I don't have a committee here.
All right.
It's me and you against the world. I don't know, Mr. Waite was here, Mr. Cooper is absent this evening.
He's
Just a
outside.
write-in.
Would you like me to go?
You don't have a quorum.
I can,
He does.
Mr.
He have Peter
I got it.
and
Peter.
Walter as vice
Only need 2 out of
president
3.
and dean
He's
of the
right
council.
outside if you'd like me to go.
You can go get him, he's aware that we've gotta do this, but
But
if
you
you wanna
only
get him.
need 2.
I understand.
Only the president.
He's going down the line. Yeah, he can use Peter and then Walter as third.
Well, not if you have 2, because all you need is 2.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
If there's a tie, you can
Yeah,
break it.
I mean, yeah, all right. If they were a tie, actually, yeah.
I mean, it's a
But
$4
they
million.
would agree.
It's a
I'm
$4
willing-
million question, you know?
Rick, it would go to you next.
Right. But, I mean, the fact that the
Ms.
gentleman's
Higgins.
outside or in the
Well,
other
if
room, I
she's
mean,
not here.
Okay.
It's like me, then
True.
Rick.
you'd rather have the actual minutes.
He's speaking with the constituent outside. He'll be right in.
Okay.
What do we got on the agenda?
Just the 4.3 million.
Oh,
Was that all?
That's all.
that's all. Maybe we give him 5.
Easy for you to say, you run the department.
What?
Public Works. Public Works and Water.
I give him 5. I didn't mean 5 million, I said 5 minutes.
How's that gonna work out on the?
Oh, my word of all.
Put your pen down over there, George. Put your pen down.
Give them 5.
We're gonna give them enough information there for another whole hour.
The notebook this week is gonna be, we've been dry in the Sun Chronicle with no quotes.
All right.
Here.
Here comes another one.
Yeah, we're all limping then.
I have a lot of.
Summer hasn't been very good to us. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Call budget and appropriations to order at 9:01. Thank you. We have one motion this evening from the docket of July 21st, 2015. I entertain a motion to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $4,350,000 is appropriated for the construction of a water department equipment and maintenance facility, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and the cost of preparing, issuing, and marketing any bonds or notes in connection therewith. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $4,350,000 under Section 7, subsection 3 of Chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws, or any other enabling authority. That $100,000 of the amount appropriated shall be allocated to the cost of preparing, issuing, and marketing any such borrowing, provided that any portion of such $100,000 not needed for such costs of issue may be used for project expenses, and that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. As we know, Mr. Lacasse, Mr. Erasian, Mr. Kennedy were before us this evening. We have an approval letter from the planning board, with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, recommending approval. We knew that this project was well in its way. We had already authorized $150,000 in engineering costs. So this is not a surprise to us that this was coming. What I liked hearing from Mr. Lacasse is that there's a very good chance that because of the debt coming off, that at least through 2017, this will not cause an increase in water rate because of construction. We have 2 projects that are absolutely mandated. And while this one is not a feel-good project, because the garage down in the DPW yard is being torn down. So this is, in a sense, an absolute necessity as well, because we now have our equipment that's susceptible to the elements. So in the end, we absolutely do need to have a garage down at the water treatment plant. And I think having it in that facility versus down in the DPW yard makes absolute sense, as it's an enterprise fund, and it absolutely separates it out between enterprise and DPW. So that concludes my thoughts. Any questions or comments that people would like to bring forward at this time? Hearing none. Mr. Blair, if you'd be my third. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. That concludes the business for this evening for budget appropriations. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned at 9:05. Thank you. And next up on the Price is Right.
I don't have any business.
You mean and then Walter.
I mean, I can go up and hang out for a little bit. Nobody wants that. You are all broken, you poor thing.
Yes, don't feel bad for me. I inflamed my meniscus by bottoming out of my swimming pool.
No matter how it happens.
When they tell you to have a safe and happy summer, they really mean it. Like, you should do like safe part.
I'd like to call the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee to order at 9:05. Sitting with me on this committee are Councilors Denley and Thibodeau. All others are welcome to participate. From the supplemental docket of July 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to allow the Recreation Department to expend approximately $11,100 and any further grant amendments through the Community Development Block Grant for federal fiscal year 2015, which is federal FFY 2015 in parentheses, to fund youth advocate positions, provide supplies, and assist towards field trips in the Attleboro Youth Center.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Denley. Both Council Thibodeau and Denley have both been through this for several years. It's wonderful that they were able to find $11,100 for the department. The youth positions are very critical to a lot of youth. Jobs are hard to find this summer. And field trips are always welcome. I have no further comments. Do you like to add? Yes, Councilor Kirby.
Just as a side note, my daughter has been participating in the summer camp program through both, so there's advocates there that, and they've been getting, they get paid through this type of grant as well as the field trips. So and my daughter's been enjoying the summer camp wonderfully, and I would be willing to abstain if that was the decision, because my daughter
Because there's financial income coming into your family.
Well, no financial income. I pay them to go to camp.
I thought they were being paid by the recreation.
No. My 11-year-old is going to the camp and enjoying the camp and having a great summer because of all that. I will abstain if you.
No, you don't need to abstain.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway.
No, she may work there in a few years, but not quite yet.
Disclosure was even easier. It's okay. Right, motion's in order. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. That concludes the business I have to bring before the committee this evening. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Capital Improvement City Development meeting at 9:08.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the Committee on Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters to order at 9:08 tonight. I have the two matters that were before us that Ms. Gould came to speak about. So from the docket of July 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance. Ordinance relative to the system of auditing and accounting. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council that Section 5-7 System of Auditing and Accounting, subsection 5-7.5 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro is hereby amended by deleting section 5-7.5 in its entirety and inserting the following section. Delete in its entirety and replace with the following. 5-7.5. The procurement of supplies and services by the city shall be accomplished to the extent it is applicable in accordance with the Uniform Procurement Act contained in Chapter 30B of the General Laws, and to the extent it is not applicable in accordance with other applicable statutes and ordinances. All contracts made for supplies and services which are in the amount of $500 or more shall be in writing and signed by the mayor, except as otherwise provided herein, and the city auditor. Contracts made by the school committee which are in the amount of less than $10,000 need not be signed by the mayor or the city auditor. The signature of the city auditor at the amount defined in this section shall indicate that sufficient funds are available in an appropriate account to pay the contract amount.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Gould came to talk to us about this tonight. What happened was the state changed its laws, so they kind of bumped around the amount of dollars that needed different approvals and whatnot. So in a just bookkeeping matter, we changed from the school committee's amount $5,000 to $10,000. That doesn't really matter because they send out purchase orders for any purchase whatsoever anyway, but that's just bookkeeping. When it comes to the $500, it used to be $200, which department heads could purchase without a purchase order. Now we have more discretion on that. So Deb, or Ms. Gould, and the mayor spoke and felt that $500 was a reasonable amount. They looked at a number of factors, including how much it's increasing over time, the increase relative to inflation, and different things like that. The recommendation came down. It seems reasonable to me. I thought Deb had good reasons for it, and it also allows department heads more reasonable flexibility to get the supplies they need in a more timely manner. Are there any questions or comments? No. Seeing as there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. And my second motion is also from tonight, from the docket of July 21st, 2015. I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance. Ordinance relative to the system of auditing and accounting. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council that Section 5-7, System of Auditing and Accounting, subsection 5-7.5 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro is hereby amended by deleting Section 5-7.12 in its entirety and inserting the following section. 5-7.12. Upon receipt of any bill, invoice, account, or claim against the city, each hereinafter referred to as a, quote, invoice, other than a final judgment, the department, board, or officer authorized to create the liability, or if not within the authority of the department, board, or officer, then the mayor, hereinafter collectively referred to as, quote, department, shall examine such invoice to determine if it is properly due and payable. If the department determines that the invoice is properly due and payable, then within 2 weeks of receiving the invoice, the department shall certify the invoice and immediately transmit the certified invoice to the accounting department, except that each department shall so examine and certify invoices dated June of any calendar year, so as to allow the processing of payment no later than the following July 15th, and such payment shall be deemed to be as of June 30th preceding. Each department shall similarly examine and certify the payrolls of their respective employees and transmit them to the accounting department on a regular basis so as to allow the payment of city employees in accordance with the pertinent collective bargaining agreement and the city personnel regulations or the employment contract of such employees. Provided, however, that payrolls shall be made up to the 30th day of June for that period between the last full payroll and the end of the fiscal year, which shall be paid on or before July 15th following, and shall be deemed to be paid as of June 30th preceding. With each such certified invoice or payroll, the department shall submit to the accounting department a schedule giving the dates of the invoices or payrolls, the payee, the appropriation chargeable therewithin, and the amounts thereof.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. This is the second motion that Ms. Gould came to speak about. It also has two moving parts. The first part is an incorrect date that was in our ordinance. We're allowed 15 days from the end of the fiscal year to make all invoice payments, and they're considered paid in full, even though we have that 15-day grace period. Our ordinances only gave us until July 10th, but the fiscal year ends June 30th. So to make that appropriate, we're changing that date to July 15th. The second thing it does is it used to say there was like a staggering of payroll versus school payroll and when invoices would be paid on bi-weekly bases, and that's not occurring. And that's not efficient for a city this large. So it allows the accounting department and the auditing department, which I think they do anyway, to pay our invoices on a weekly basis so we can stay on top of them and make sure all of our vendors get paid appropriately. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing as how there are none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:14. Thank you very much, everyone. I think it's Walter.
Last but not least.
No, I think Heather has some.
Oh, Heather.
No, I don't have any business.
I didn't know you did. I would have said you go first. I was trying to be fair.
I'd like to call the Transportation and Traffic Committee to order at 9:15. I have two motions and a little conversation. Entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance. Ordinance relative to prohibited parking. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council that Section 10-5.2 prohibited on certain streets of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro is hereby amended by adding the following street in alphabetical order. Berwick Road, easterly side, from 100 feet from Mechanic Street for a distance of 600 feet.
Second.
Thank you. Excuse me. The language is different than the public hearing notice that was read tonight, because it can't be placed in the ordinance book by poll numbers. It has to be actual measurements. So we had to go back out and do it that way with the little wheel with the handle on it. So that's why we're 100 feet away from the intersection of Mechanic and Berwick Road That's approximately where the pole is. Mr. Conti.
So Councilor Cooper came to my home this weekend as he was aware that he would not be here this evening, and I sent him home with cucumbers and squash. He wanted to know what I had heard about this, and I had spoken to my neighbors, and he had spoken to my neighbors, and we're in concurrence that this is a worthwhile effort because of the topography of that inside curve and the parking of 1,000 cars close to the water line. In addition to the fact that the person who lives across on the westerly side of this same spot has been cleaning that area with gloves of hypodermic needles and other issues for many years, and his house is down for sale. He'll be moving, and maybe this will help that issue as well. So the neighborhood's in favor of it, as am I and my wife.
In fact, when Ron and I were out there doing the measurements with the wheel, the resident that is the first property that's adjacent to the embankment there came out and was talking to us, and he was telling us about how all of the neighbors in the neighborhood usually clear out the catch basins whenever they get clogged with leaves so that they don't have problems with flooding and things of that nature. And he was talking about one of the residents across the street doing that, and but he seemed to be happy about the idea as well. So that was good to hear face to face. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Second motion I have is entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance. Ordinance relative to isolated stop signs. Be it ordained by the municipal council at section 10-4.11, isolated stop signs of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro is hereby amended by inserting accepted or unaccepted after the word following and before the word streets of the first sentence.
Second.
Thank you. Along with the previous motion, we had a public hearing tonight. No one spoke against it. This is what I have been referring to in committee, of being able to have several streets come before us and having one public hearing for the installation of isolated stop signs. The definition of isolated stop signs could be just one sign or one sign on each side of the intersection, as opposed to a four-way stop. We can do this because the state has changed the warrants that used to prevent us from doing this without having a traffic count and accident histories and all that other stuff. They still maintain that for four-way stops, but for isolated stop signs, they no longer have that as one of their warrants or a stipulation that you have to do those things. So that would allow, for instance, the accepted or unaccepted word after the word following or in the word streets would be in a document that would say WB Construction, for instance, are going to build 20 single-family homes, and they're going to put 4 roadways in. That would allow, even though the plan has been accepted or approved, excuse me, the plan has been approved, but the city has not accepted the roadway. It allows the city to go ahead and post stop signs, to go ahead and, because we're providing, they're paying taxes and we're providing other services, but until the roadway becomes accepted by the city council on the recommendation of the superintendent of public works, then we can't count it within our chapter 90 formula because it's an unaccepted roadway. So previous to this, because it was unaccepted, even though the plan had been approved, we couldn't put up stop signs or any other kind of regulatory signs because it wasn't allowed. And neither could the developer, because they're not the body that can do that, only we are. So this way, if the police chief so desires, he can bring forth a list of streets for a subdivision that's being built or some kind of a division that's being built and, or development that's being built that has different roadways. And then we can have one public hearing if it includes one street or 5 or 6 different streets on the public hearing that would encompass all of that area, and have the one public hearing instead of having 5 or 6 different ones. So it speeds up the process quite a bit, and it includes roadways that previously had not had the coverage of safety, posted safety signs that areas will now be able to have legally. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the draft agreement that was sent out to you today, that you, I think everybody has a copy in their box besides. I won't be talking about this tonight because you just received it. So please look through it. I plan on discussing it on Thursday. There are some changes that will need to be made in when this would start. It was brought to my attention today that the website for Bishop Feen actually states that the full classes will not be starting until September 8th or 10th. Around that, I think it's the day after Labor Day, which I think is the 8th, right?
I think so.
And, but what they were talking about doing was starting a pilot or a test period, if you will, at the end of August. But that, in that case, only the seniors would be there. You wouldn't have the full classes. So I don't think that that's a fair assessment, because we're going to be looking at it after that period of time to see if we need to, presuming that it passes, of course. After we discuss this on Thursday, I will probably be asking for a public forum for the full council, before the full council, to ask for a public forum. I will schedule that in this chamber, probably the first week of August. But I'll have to work that out with everyone to make sure that most everyone, if not everyone, are available for that kind of a timetable. And then we can have the public forum, and then after that, when we get to our August meetings, then we can go forward with a vote, one way or the other, if we want to accept the agreement, if we want to amend the agreement. Knowing that, the next step to this is that once we agree with the negotiations that have taken forth before us, then at that point, it gets bumped up to the administration. So that would be the vote that I would ask you for at that point in time, would be for us to go ahead and send it to the administration with our recommendation to approve the agreement. Now, from that point on, it will be between the city's administration, the diocese, and Bishop Feen's administration. That's why the document is written, entitled the way that it is, and the signatures in the order that they are. When Mr. Casey and I were discussing it, we did agree that regardless of who's what the guardianship of any facility is, if it's within the Fall River Diocese, the Fall River Diocese owns it. And if in fact, I don't know why they would, but if Bishop Feen went up for sale, it would be the diocese that would be collecting the money, not the current folks who are running Bishop Feen. So, in order to be consistent, I felt that was the way to go. So please, read the document so that I don't have to go through every detail, unless, of course, you want me to. But that wraps me up. So if there aren't any questions about that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:26. Thank you.
It's all right.
The city said, let's go.
Glad I wore a jacket tonight.
We'll touch base with you.
Who do you do for?